Chapter 6. Animal Wives and Husbands. The Peaked Buffalo Wife. Blackfoot. Once a young man went out and came to a buffalo cow fast in the mire. He took advantage of her situation. After a time she gave birth to a boy. When he could run about, this boy would go into the Indian camps and join in the games of the children, but would always mysteriously disappear in the evening. One day this boy told his mother that he intended to search among the camps for his father. Not long after this he was playing with the children in the camps as usual, and went into the lodge of a headman in company with a boy of the family. He told this headman that his father lived somewhere in the camp, and that he was anxious to find him. The headman took pity on the boy, and sent out a messenger to call into his lodge all the old men in the camp. When these were all assembled and standing around the lodge, the headman requested the boy to pick out his father. The boy looked them over, and then told the headman that his father was not among them. Then the headman sent out a messenger to call in all the men next in age, but, when these were assembled, the boy said that his father was not among them. Again the headman sent out the messenger to call in all the men of the next rank in age. When they were assembled, the boy looked them over as before, and announced that his father was not among them. So once again the headman sent out his messenger to call in all the young unmarried men of the camp. As they were coming into the headman's lodge, the boy ran to one of them, and, embracing his, said, "Here is my father." After a time the boy told his father that he wished to take him to see his mother. The boy said, "When we come near her, she will run at you and hook 4 times, but you are to stand perfectly still." The next day the boy and his father started out on their journey. As they were going along they saw a buffalo cow, which immediately ran at them as the boy had predicted. The man stood perfectly still, and at the 4th time, as the cow was running forward to hook at him, she became a woman. Then she went home with her husband and child. One day shortly after their return, she warned her husband that whatever he might do he must never strike at her with fire. They lived together happily for many years. She was a remarkably good woman. One evening when the husband had invited some guests, and the woman expressed a dislike to prepare food for them, he became very angry, and, catching up a stick from the fire, struck at her. As he did so, the woman and her child vanished, and the people saw a buffalo cow and calf running from the camp. Now the husband was very sorry and mourned for his wife and child. After a time he went out to search for them. In order that he might approach the buffalo without being discovered, he rubbed himself with filth from a buffalo wallow. In the course of time he came to a place where some buffalo were dancing. He could hear them from a distance. As he was approaching, he met his son, who was now, as before, a buffalo calf. The father explained to the boy that he was mourning for him and his mother and that he had come to take them home. The calf boy explained that this would be very difficult, for his father would be required to pass through an ordeal. The calf boy explained to him that, when he arrived among the buffalo and inquired for his wife and son, the chief of the buffalo would order that he select his child from among all the buffalo calves in the herd. Now the calf boy wished to assist his father, and told him that he would know his child by a sign, because, when the calves appeared before him, his own child would hold up its tail. Then the man proceeded until he came to the place where the buffalo were dancing. Immediately he was taken before the chief of the buffalo herd. The chief required that he first prove his relationship to the child by picking him out from among all the other calves of the herd. The man agreed to this and the calves were brought up. He readily picked out his own child by the sign. The chief of the buffalo, however, was not satisfied with this proof, and said that the father could not have the child until he identified him 4 times. While the preparations were being made for another test, the calf boy came to his father and explained that he would be known this time by closing one eye. When the time arrived, the calves were brought as before, and the chief of the buffalo directed the father to identify his child, which he did by the sign. Before the next trial, the calf boy explained to his father that the sign would be one ear hanging down. Accordingly, when the calves were brought up for the father to choose, he again identified his child. Now, before the last trial, the boy came again to his father and notified him that the sign by which he was to be known was dancing and holding up one leg. Now the calf boy had a chum among the buffalo calves, and when the calves were called up before the chief so that the father might select his child, the chum saw the calf boy beginning to dance holding up one leg, and he thought to himself, "He is doing some fancy dancing." So he, also, danced in the same way. Now the father observed that there were 2 calves giving the sign, and realized that he must make a guess. He did so, but the guess was wrong. Immediately the herd rushed upon the man and trampled him into the dust. Then they all ran away except the calf boy, his mother, and an old bull. These 3 mourned together for the fate of the unfortunate man. After a time the old bull requested that they examine the ground to see if they could find a piece of bone. After long and careful search they succeeded in finding one small piece that had not been trampled by the buffalo. The bull took this piece, made a sweat house, and finally restored the man to life. When the man was restored, the bull explained to him that he and his family would receive some power, some headdresses, some songs, and some crooked sticks, such as he had seen the buffalo carry in the dance at the time when he attempted to pick out his son. The calf boy and his mother then became human beings, and returned with the man. It was this man who started the bull and the horn societies, and it was his wife who started the Matoki. Bear women and deer women. Lasik. Grizzly bear and doe, the 2 wives of Chicken Hawk, were pounding acorns. When they had finished, one of them said, "Let us go down to the creek and leach the meal." While they were waiting for the meal to soak, they agreed to hunt one another's heads for lice. Doe looked first in Grizzly's hair. "You have no lice," she said. "Well then," said Grizzly, "I will look in yours." When in her search she reached the doe's neck, she sprinkled in some sand. "You have many lice," she said, "I will chew them." "Ucka! Ucka!" cried Doe, "hold on there." Biting her head off, she killed her. Taking Doe's head and both lots of acorn meal, she went back to the house. She put the head in the fire, and when the eyes burst with the heat, she told the children it was only the white oak log cracking in the fire. "I think it is our mother's head," said one of the Doe's children. "Go a long way off and play," said Grizzly. "You won't be permitted to live long," they heard their mother's hair so say to them. The 2 bear children and the 2 fawns went out to play. "Let us play smoke each other out in this hollow log," suggested the fawns. The bears agreed and the fawns went in first. "That's enough," "That's enough," they cried. "Now you go in," they told the bears. The fawns fanned the smoke into the log until the bears were smothered. Going back to the house, one of them held out what she had in her hand and said, "Here is a skunk we killed in a log." "Very well," said the bear mother. Then the other fawn held out hers and said, "Here is a skunk we killed in a log." "Thank you, my niece, after a while I will make a meal upon them," replied Grizzly. "She is eating her children," she heard someone say. "What did you say?" she asked. "First you killed a person, and now you are eating your own children's hands." She ran after the children who had been taunting her. When she came near them she called in a pleasant voice, "Well, come home." They ran up on a ridge and barely escaped being caught. Finally they came to a place where Crane was fishing by the river. "Grandfather, put your neck across and let us go over on it. An old woman is after us." "Put your neck across." They crossed over safely and running to the top of a ridge hid in a hole in a rock. When Grizzly came, Crane put his neck across again for a bridge, but when she was halfway over he gave it a sudden twist. She went floating down the middle of the stream. Splinterfoot Girl. Arapaho. It was in winter and a large party was on the warpath. Some of them became tired and went home, but 7 continued on their way. Coming to a river, they made camp on account of one of them who was weary and nearly exhausted. They found that he was unable to go farther. Then they made a good brush hut in order that they might winter there. From this place they went out and looked for buffalo and hunted them wherever they thought they might find them. During the hunting one of them ran against a thorny plant and became unable to hunt for some time. His leg swelled very much in consequence of the wound, and finally suddenly opened. Then a child issued from the leg. The young men took from their own clothes what they could spare and used it for wrapping for the child. They made a panther skin answer as a cradle. They passed the child around from one to the other, like people smoking a pipe. They were glad to have another person with them and they were very fond of the child. While they lived there they killed very many elk and saved the teeth. From the skins they made a dress for the child, which was then old enough to run about. The dress was a girl's, entirely covered with elk teeth. They also made a belt for her. She was very beautiful. Her name was Footstuck Child. A buffalo bull called Bone Bull heard that these young men had had a daughter born to them. As is the custom, he sent the magpie to go to these people to ask for the girl in marriage. The magpie came to the young men and told them what the Bone Bull wished, but he did not meet with any success. The young men said, "We will not do it. We love our daughter. She is so young that it will not be well to let her go." The magpie returned and told the Bone Bull what the young men had said. He advised the bull to get a certain small bird which was very clever and would perhaps persuade the young men to consent to the girl's marriage with him. So the small bird was sent out by the bull. It reached the place where the people lived and lighted on the top of the brush house. In a gentle voice it said to the men, "I am sent by Bone Bull to ask for your daughter." The young men still refused, giving the same answer as before. The bird flew back and told the bull of the result. The bull said to it, "Go back and tell them that I mean what I ask. I shall come myself later." It was known that the bull was very powerful and hard to overcome or escape from. The bird went again and fulfilled the bull's instruction, but again returned unsuccessfully. It told the bull, "They are at last making preparations for the marriage. They are dressing the girl finely." But the bull did not believe it. Then, in order to free itself from the unpleasant task, the bird advised him to procure the services of someone who could do better than itself, someone that had a sweet juicy tongue. So the bull sent another bird, called Fire Owner, which has red on its head and reddish wings. This bird took the message to the young men. Now at last they consented. So the girl went to the bull and was received by him and lived with him for some time. She wore a painted buffalo robe. At certain times the bull got up in order to lead the herd to water. At such times he touched his wife, who, wearing her robe, was sitting in the same position as all the rest, as a sign for her to go to. The young men were lonely and thought how they might recover their daughter. It was a year since she had left them. They sent out flies, but when the flies came near the bull he bellowed to drive them away. The flies were so much afraid of him that they did not approach him. Then the magpie was sent, and came and alighted at a distance, but when the bull saw him he said, "Go away. I do not want you about." Then they sent the blackbird, which lit on his back and began to sing. But the bull said to it also, "Go away, I do not want you about." The blackbird flew back to the men and said, "I can do nothing to help you to get your daughter back, but I will tell you of two animals that work unseen, and are very cunning. They are the mole and the badger. If you get their help you will surely recover the girl." Then the young men got the mole and the badger, and they started at night, taking arrows with them. They went underground, the mole going ahead. The badger followed and made the hole larger. They came under the place where the girl was sitting and the mole emerged under her blanket. He gave her the arrows which he had brought and she stuck them into the ground and rested her robe on them, and then the badger came under this too. The two animals said to her, "We have come to take you back." She said, "I am afraid," but they urged her to flee. Finally she consented, and leaving her robe in the position in which she always sat, went back through the hole with the mole and the badger to the house of the young men. When she arrived they started to flee. The girl had become tired, when they came to the stone and asked it to help them. The stone said, "I can do nothing for you, the bull is too powerful to contend with." They rested by the side of the stone, then they continued on their way, one of them carrying the girl. But they went more slowly on account of her. They crossed a river, went through the timber, and on the prairie the girl walked again for a distance. In front of them they saw a lone immense cottonwood tree. They said to it, "We are pursued by a powerful animal and come to you for help." The tree told them, "Run around me 4 times," and they did this. The tree had 7 large branches, the lowest of them high enough to be out of the reach of the buffalo, and at the top was a fork in which was a nest. They climbed the tree, each of the men sitting on one of the branches, and the girl getting into the nest. So they waited for the bull who would pursue them. When the bull touched his wife in order to go to water, she did not move. He spoke to her angrily and touched her again. The 3rd time he tried to hook her with his horn, but tossed the empty rope away. "They cannot escape me," he said. he noticed the fresh ground which the badger had thrown up in order to close the hole. He hooked the ground and threw it to one side, and the other bulls got up and did the same, throwing the ground as if they were making a ditch and following the course of the underground passage until they came to the place where the people had lived. The camp was already broken up, but they followed the people's trail. Coming to the stone, the bull asked, "Have you hidden the people or done anything to help them?" The stone said, "I have not helped them for fear of you." But the bull insisted, "Tell me where you hid them. I know that they reached you and are somewhere about." "No, I did not hide them, they reached this place but went on," said the stone. "Yes, you have hidden them, I can smell them and see their tracks about here." "The girl rested here a short time, that is what you smell," said the stone. Then the buffalo followed the trail again and crossed the river, the bull leading. One calf, which was becoming very tired, tried hard to keep up with the rest. It became exhausted at the lone cottonwood tree and stopped to rest. But the herd went on, not having seen the people in the tree. They went far on. The girl was so tired that she had a slight hemorrhage. Then she spat down. As the calf was resting in the shade below, the bloody spittle fell down before it. The calf smelled it, knew it, got up, and went after the rest of the buffalo. Coming near the herd, it cried out to the bull, "Stop! I have found a girl in the top of a tree. She is the one who is your wife." Then the whole herd turned back to the tree. When they reached it, the bull said, "We will surely get you." The tree said, "You have 4 parts of strength. I give you a chance to do something to me." Then the buffalo began to attack the tree. Those with least strength began. They butted it until its thick bark was peeled off. Meanwhile the young men were shooting them from the tree. The tree said, "Let some of them break their horns." Then came the large bulls, who split the wood of the tree, but some stuck fast, and others broke their horns or lost the covering. The bull said, "I will be the last one and will make the tree fall." At last he came on, charging against the tree from the southeast, striking it, and making a big gash. Then, coming from the southwest, he made a larger hole. Going to the northwest, he charged from there, and again cut deeper, but broke his right horn. Going then to the northeast, he charged the tree with his left horn and made a still larger hole. The 5th time he went straight east, intending to strike the tree in the center and break it down. He pranced about, raising the dust, but the tree said to him, "You can do nothing. So come on quickly." This made him angry and he charged. The tree said, "This time you will stick fast," and he ran his left horn far into the middle of the wood and stuck fast. Then the tree told the young men to shoot him in the soft part of his neck and sides, for he could not get loose or injure them. Then they shot him and killed him, so that he hung there. Then they cut him loose. The tree told them to gather all the chips and pieces of wood that had been knocked off and cover the bull with them, and they did so. All the buffalo that had not been killed went away. The tree said to them, "Hereafter you will be overcome by human beings. You will have horns, but when they come to hunt you, you will be afraid. You will be killed and eaten by them, and they will use your skins." Then the buffalo scattered over the land with half-broken, short horns. After the people had descended from the tree, they went on their way. The magpie came to them as messenger sent by merciless man to ask the young men for their daughter in marriage. He was a round rock. The magpie knew what this rock had done and warned the men not to consent to the marriage. He said, "Do not have anything to do with him, since he is not a good man. Your daughter is beautiful, and I do not like to see her married to the rock. He has married the prettiest girls he could hear of, obtaining them somehow. But his wives are crippled, one-armed, or one-legged, or much bruised. I will tell the rock to get the hummingbird for a messenger because that bird is swift and can escape him if he should pursue." So the magpie returned and said that the young men refused the marriage. But the rock sent him back to say, "Tell them that the girl must marry me nevertheless." The magpie persuaded him to send the hummingbird as messenger instead of himself. Then the hummingbird went to carry the message to the young men, but, on reaching them, told them instead, "He is merciless and not the right man to marry this girl. He has treated his wives very badly. You had better leave this place." So he went back without having tried to help the rock. He told the rock that he had seen neither camp nor people. "Yes, you saw them," said the rock. "You are trying to help them instead of helping me. Therefore you try to pretend that you did not see them. Go back and tell them that I want the girl. If they refuse, say that I shall be there soon." The hummingbird went again to the men and told them what the rock wished, and said, "He is powerful. Perhaps it is best if you let your daughter go. But there are two animals that can surely help you. They can bring her back before he injures her. They are the mole and the badger." "Yes," they said, now having confidence in these animals. So the hummingbird took the girl to the rock. He reached his tent, which was large and fine, but full of crippled wives. "I have your wife here," he said. "Very well," said the rock, "let her come in. I am pleased that you brought her, she is pretty enough for me." Soon after the hummingbird had left with the girl, the mole and the badger started underground and made their way to the rock's tent. In the morning the rock always went buzzing out through the top of the tent, in the evening he came back home in the same way. While he was away, the two animals arrived. The girl was sitting with both feet outstretched. They said to her, "Remain sitting thus until your husband returns." Then they made a hole large enough for the rock to fall into and covered it lightly. In the evening the rock was heard coming. As he was entering above, the girl got up, and the rock dropped into the hole while she ran out of the tent saying, "Let the hole be closed." "Let the earth be covered again," said the mole and the badger. They heard the rock inside the earth, tossing about, buzzing, and angry. The girl returned to her father's. They traveled all night, fleeing. In the morning the rock overtook them. As they were going, they wished a canyon with steep cliffs to be behind them. The rock went down the precipice, and while he tried to climb up again, the others went on. It became night again, and in the morning the rock was near them once more. Then the girl said, "This time it shall happen. I am tired and weary from running, my fathers." She was carrying a ball, and, saying, "First for my father," she threw it up and as it came down kicked it upwards, and her father rose up. Then she did the same for the others until all had gone up. When she came to do it for herself the rock was near. She threw the ball, kicked it, and she too rose up. She said, we have passed through dangers on my account. I think this is the best place for us to go. It is a good place where we are. I shall provide the means of living for you." To the rock she said, "You shall remain where you overtook us. You shall not trouble people any longer, but be found wherever there are hills." She and her fathers reached the sky in one place. They live in a tent covered with stars. The eagle and whale husbands. Greenland Eskimo. 2 little girls were playing with some small bones on the beach, the one with eagle bones, the other with whale bones. Suddenly an eagle came soaring through the air above them, and one of the girls said, "I will have an eagle for my husband," and the other replied, "Thou mayst rejoice that thou hast already got a husband, I will have a whale for mine." Instantly a whale was seen to spout out at sea. "Oh!" And the eagle took one girl up and flew away with her, and the whale took the other down to the bottom of the sea, having first made her eyes and ears impenetrable, so that the water could not enter. The eagle carried his bride to the top of a steep cliff, and brought her different sorts of little birds for food, but she gathered all the sinews of the birds' wings, and knotted them together, in order to make a string of them. One day, when the eagle was away, she tried the length of it, and found that it reached down to the level of the sea. Another day she saw a kayaker rowing along the shore, and when he came just below, she called out to him to send a boat to rescue her. Soon afterwards the boat appeared, and she went sliding down by her string of sinews, and got back to her parents. But the eagle, who missed his mate, soared above the houses beating his wings, and one of the inhabitants of the place cried out to him, "If thou wantest to show thou hast been married into our family, spread out thy wings," but when the eagle did so they shot him through the body. The other girl who had been stolen by the whale was secured to the bottom of the sea by a rope, and when he was at home, she had nothing to do but to sit picking the lice from off his body. She had 2 brothers living close by, and both set about building a boat of immense swiftness, in which they intended to deliver their sister, but when the boat was finished it could not match a bird in speed, and was therefore broken to pieces. And another begun. This boat proved a match for a flying bird, but was nevertheless discarded, and they again built a new one, in which they tried to overtake a gull, and on finding that this one even outdid the bird, they started from home to fetch back their sister. On becoming aware of their approach she loosened the cord that held her, and twisting it round the stone, she left with the boat. When the whale on his return drew the cord to get hold of her, and discovered that she was gone, he hurried after her. But when he came quite close to the boat she threw her outer jacket into the water to him. Having snapped at it he let it go, and again pursued her, and when he had got quite close up with them, she flung her inner jacket at him, which again detained the whale, but he soon reached them for the 3rd time. Then she threw her long jacket, and before he could overtake them again they had already landed, but when the whale reached the shore he was transformed into a piece of whalebone. The Fox Woman. Labrador Eskimo. A hunter who lived by himself found when he returned to the place after an absence that it had been visited and everything put in order as a dutiful wife should do. This happened so often with no visible signs of tracks that the man determined to watch and see who would scrape his skin clothing and boots, hang them out to dry, and cook nice hot food ready to be eaten when he returned. One day he went away as though going off on a hunt, but secreted himself so as to observe the entrance of anything into the house. After a while he saw a fox enter. He suspected that the fox was after food. He quietly slipped up to the house and on entering saw a most beautiful woman dressed in skin clothing of wondrous make. Within the house, on a line, hung the skin of a fox. The man inquired if it was she who had done these things. She replied that she was his wife and it was her duty to do them, hoping that she had performed her labor in a manner satisfactory to him. After they had lived together a short time, the husband detected a musky odor about the house and inquired of her what it was. She replied that she emitted the odor and if he was going to find fault with her for it she would leave. She dashed off her clothing and, resuming the skin of the fox, slipped quietly away and has never been disposed to visit a man since that time. LXII The woman stolen by killer whales. Tarleton, Tite, Journal of American Folklore, XXIV. A man was out fishing and drying halibut, and his wife helped him. One day he felt something very heavy on his hook, and could not pull it up. He tied the line to the thwart of the canoe, and paddled ashore. With much trouble he managed to land the fish on the beach. He called on his wife to kill it quickly, and she dispatched it with her knife. She cut it up and hung it up to dry, as is done with halibut. They did not know what kind of a fish it was. It was quite strange to them, but they thought it might be good food. When the woman had finished her work, she went to the edge of the water to wash her hands. As soon as she put her hands into the water, something seized them and pulled her underneath the sea. She had been taken by the killer whales, who had come to have revenge on the man for killing their friend. The man followed the trail of his wife and her captors under the sea. He came to the house of the fish chief, and asked him if he knew where his wife was. The chief said, "Yes, the killer whales have taken her to be their slave." The man asked the chief if any fish of his company would care to help him get back his wife. The chief asked the fishes if any of them would volunteer, and Shark said he would go. Shark went ahead to Killer Whale's house, and hid the man outside the door. He went in, and saw that the killer whales were about to eat their evening meal. Their chief said, "Make the fire blaze, that we may see well." Shark was standing next to the fire. He jumped up quickly and put much wood on the fire, so that it blazed up. The chief then said, "Someone fetch water." Shark seized the buckets and ran out to draw water. As he came in and was passing the fire, he stumbled purposely, and upset the buckets in the fire, thus causing a dense cloud of ashes and steam to arise. Quickly he caught up the woman, pushed her out into the arms of her husband, who was waiting, and followed them. Shark kept in the rear, and said to the man, "Keep going. If they overtake us, I shall fight them." When the man and woman were nearly home, they looked back, and saw a severe fight in progress. Shark was fighting all the killer whales, biting them with his sharp teeth, and tearing them with his rough skin. Exit the rolling head. Cheyenne. In a solitary tent lived a lone family, a man, his wife, and 2 children. When the man went out hunting, he always painted his wife's face and body before he started in the morning. His wife went for water to a lake nearby. She always went to the same place, and when she came to the lake, she took off her clothes, as if to bathe. Then a large snake rose out of the lake, after the woman had spoken to it and told it to appear. The snake asked her to come out to him, since her husband had gone away hunting. The woman did as the snake said. Every morning she went to the lake. Her husband brought back meat, and she and the children were glad. The man did not know what happened. He did not know that his wife went after water to the lake and met a large snake. But one day he asked her what made the paint come off her. She said that she took a bath. Next morning he started as if to hunt, but dug a hiding place near the lake to see what his wife did. She came to the shore and called to the snake, "Come, I am waiting." Then he saw a big old snake rise from the water, and ask her if her husband had gone hunting. She answered, "Yes, I am coming." She took off her clothes and entered the lake, and the snake was soon around her. The man had watched them, and now, leaving his hiding place, he jumped on the snake, and with a large knife cut it in pieces and at last killed it. Then he caught his wife and killed her. He cut her up, and took her meat home and gave it to his children. He cooked his wife, and the children unknowingly ate their mother. Then the man said to them, "Tell your mother when she comes home that I went to get more meat which I left hanging on a tree so that the wolves cannot reach it." And he went away. The younger child said, "Our mother is merely teasing us by staying away." But the older girl answered, "Do not say anything against our mother." Then their mother's head came rolling to them, and it said, "I am very sorry that my children have eaten me up." The two children ran away, but the head pursued them. At last they were worn out, but their mother's lead still rolled after them. Then the older girl drew a line or mark on the ground and so deep a hole opened that the head could not cross. The younger girl was very hungry. She said to her sister, "Look at that deer." The older girl looked at the deer, and it fell down dead as if shot. So they ate of it. Then someone was kind to them and helped them, and they lived in a large lodge and had much food of various kinds to eat. 2 large panthers and 2 large black bears guarded them against all wild animals and persons. A camp of people was starving. Neither buffalo nor smaller game could be found. The people heard that the children had abundance of food of all kinds, and they all moved to them. When they arrived, the children invited them, and the various companies came and ate with them. Finally they all went out again, only the children's father now stayed with them again. But they regretted what he had done to them. So they caused the lions to jump upon their father, and he was killed. Elxiv the Bear Woman. Blackfoot. Once there was a young woman with many suitors, but she refused to marry. She had 7 brothers and 1 little sister. Their mother had been dead many years and they had no relatives, but lived alone with their father. Every day the 6 brothers went out hunting with their father. It seems that the young woman had a bear for her lover and, as she did not want anyone to know this, she would meet him when she went out after wood. She always went after wood as soon as her father and brothers went out to hunt, leaving her little sister alone in the lodge. As soon as she was out of sight in the brush, she would run to the place where the bear lived. As the little sister grew older, she began to be curious as to why her older sister spent so much time getting wood. So one day she followed her. She saw the young woman meet the bear and saw that they were lovers. When she found this out, she ran home as quickly as she could, and when her father returned she told him what she had seen. When he heard the story he said, "So, my elder daughter has a bear for a husband." Now I know why she does not want to marry." Then he went about the camp, telling all his people that they had a bear for a brother-in-law, and that he wished all the men to go out with him to kill this bear. So they went, found the bear, and killed him. When the young woman found out what had been done, and that her little sister had told on her, she was very angry. She scolded her little sister vigorously, then ordered her to go out to the dead bear, and bring some flesh from his paws. The little sister began to cry, and said she was afraid to go out of the lodge, because a dog with young pups had tried to bite her. "Oh, do not be afraid," said the young woman. "I will paint your face like that of a bear, with black marks across the eyes and at the corners of the mouth, then no one will touch you." So she went for the meat. Now the older sister was a powerful medicine woman. She could tan hides in a new way. She could take up a hide, strike it 4 times with her skin scraper and it would be tanned. The little sister had a younger brother that she carried on her back. As their mother was dead, she took care of him. One day the little sister said to the older sister, "Now you be a bear and we will go out into the brush to play." The older sister agreed to this, but said, "Little sister, you must not touch me over my kidneys." So the big sister acted as a bear, and they played in the brush. While they were playing, the little sister forgot what she had been told, and touched her older sister in the wrong place. At once she turned into a real bear, ran into the camp, and killed many of the people. After she had killed a large number, she turned back into her former self. Now, when the little sister saw the older run away as a real bear, she became frightened, took up her little brother, and ran into their lodge. Here they waited, badly frightened, but were very glad to see their older sister return after a time as her true self. Now the older brothers were out hunting, as usual. As the little sister was going down for water with her little brother on her back, she met her 6 brothers returning. The brothers noted how quiet and deserted the camp seemed to be. So they said to their little sister, "Where are all our people?" Then the little sister explained how she and her sister were playing, when the elder turned into a bear, ran through the camp, and killed many people. She told her brothers that they were in great danger, as their sister would surely kill them when they came home. So the 6 brothers decided to go into the brush. One of them had killed a jackrabbit. He said to the little sister, "You take this rabbit home with you. When it is dark, we will scatter prickly pears all around the lodge, except in one place. When you come out, you must look for that place, and pass through." When the little sister came back to the lodge, the elder sister said, "Where have you been all this time?" "Oh, my little brother mussed himself and I had to clean him," replied the little sister. "Where did you get that rabbit?" she asked. "I killed it with a sharp stick," said the little sister. "That is a lie. Let me see you do it," said the older sister. Then the little sister took up a stick lying near her, threw it at the rabbit, and it stuck in the wound in his body. "Well, all right," said the elder sister. Then the little sister dressed the rabbit and cooked it. She offered some of it to her older sister, but it was refused, so the little sister and her brother ate all of it. When the elder sister saw that the rabbit had all been eaten, she became very angry, and said, "Now I have a mind to kill you." So the little sister arose quickly, took her little brother on her back, and said, "I am going out to look for wood. As she went out, she followed the narrow trail through the prickly pears and met her 6 brothers in the brush. Then they decided to leave the country, and started off as fast as they could go. The older sister, being a powerful medicine woman, knew at once what they were doing. She became very angry and turned herself into a bear to pursue them. Soon she was about to overtake them, when one of the boys tried his power. He took a little water in the hollow of his hand and sprinkled it around. At once it became a great lake between them and the bear. Then the children hurried on while the bear went around. After a while the bear caught up with them again, when another brother threw a porcupine tail, a hairbrush, on the ground. This became a great thicket, but the bear forced its way through, and again overtook the children. This time they all climbed a high tree. The bear came to the foot of the tree, and, looking up at them, said, "Now I shall kill you all." So she took a stick from the ground, threw it into the tree and knocked down 4 of the brothers. While she was doing this, a little bird flew around the tree, calling out to the children, "Shoot her in the head! Shoot her in the head!" Then one of the boys shot an arrow into the head of the bear, and at once she fell dead. Then they came down from the tree. Now the 4 brothers were dead. The little brother took an arrow, shot it straight up into the air, and when it fell one of the dead brothers came to life. This he repeated until all were alive again. Then they held a council, and said to each other, "Where shall we go? Our people have all been killed, and we are a long way from home. We have no relatives living in the world." Finally they decided that they preferred to live in the sky. Then the little brother said, "Shut your eyes." As they did so, they all went up. Now you can see them every night. The little brother is the North Star. The 6 brothers and the little sister are seen in the Great Dipper. The little sister and eldest brother are in a line with the North Star, the little sister being nearest it because she used to carry her little brother on her back. The other brothers are arranged in order of their age, beginning with the eldest. This is how the 7 stars, Ursa Major, came to be. LXV the dog husband. Quino. A long time ago, in a certain village there lived a young girl who had a dog of which she was very fond. She took the dog with her wherever she went, and at night, as was a common custom at that time with young girls, the dog slept at the foot of the bed. Every night he would change into human form and lie with the girl, and in the morning, before it was light, would turn back again into his dog shape, so no one knew anything about it. After a time she became pregnant, and when her parents found it out and knew that the dog was the cause, they were greatly ashamed, and calling the people together they tore down the house, put out all the fires, and moved away from the place, leaving the girl to die. But Crow had pity on her, and, taking some coals, she placed them between 2 clam shells, and told the girl secretly that after a time she would hear a crackling, and to go to the spot and she would find fire. So the girl was left alone, for the people had all gone a long way across the water. She sat still for a long time, listening for the crackling, and when she finally heard it she went to the place and found the fire as Crow had said. Not long after this she gave birth to 5 dog pups, but as her father had killed the dog, her lover, she had to look after them by herself, and the only way she could live and care for them was to gather clams and other shellfish on the beach. There were 4 male pups and 1 female, and with the care their mother gave them, they grew very fast. Soon she noticed that whenever she went out, she heard a noise of singing and dancing, which seemed to come from the house, and she wondered greatly. 4 times she heard the noise and wondered, and when, on going out again, she heard it for the 5th time, she took her clam digger and stuck it in the sand, and put her clothes on it to make it look as if she were busy gathering clams. Then she stole back by a roundabout way, and creeping close to the house peeped in through a crack to see what the noise might be. There she saw 4 boys dancing and singing, and a little girl watching the place where the mother was supposed to be digging clams. The mother waited a moment and watched, and then coming in she caught them in human form, and scolded them, saying that they ought to have had that form in the first place, for on their account she had been brought to shame before the people. At this the children sat down and were ashamed. And the mother tore down the dog blankets which were hanging about, and threw them into the fire. So they remained in human form after this, and as soon as they were old enough she made little bows and arrows for the boys, and taught them how to shoot birds, beginning with the wren, and working up to the largest. Then she taught them to make large bows and arrows, and how to shoot fur animals, and then larger game, up to the elk. And she made them bathe every day to try to get tameness for catching whales, and after that they hunted the hair seal to make floats of its skin. And the mother made harpoons for them of elk bone, and lines of twisted sinews and cedar, and at the end of the line she fastened the sealskin floats. And when everything was ready, the boys went out whaling and were very successful, and brought in so many whales that the whole beach stank with them. Now, Crow noticed one day, from far across the water, a great smoke rising from where the old village had stood, and that night she came over secretly to see what it all meant. And before she neared the beach, she smelled the dead whales, and when she came up she saw the carcasses lying all about, and there were so many that some of them had not yet been cut up. When she reached the house, she found the children grown up, and they welcomed her and gave her food, all she could eat, but gave her nothing to take back, telling her to come over again if she wanted more. When Crow started back, the girl told her that when she reached home, she was to weep so that the people would believe they were dead. But Crow, on getting home, instead of doing as she was told, described how the beach was covered with seagulls feeding on the whales that had been killed by the boys. Now, Crow had brought with her secretly a piece of whale meat for her children, and after putting out the light she fed it to them, and one of them ate so fast that she choked, and coughed a piece of the meat out on the ground. And some of the people saw it, and then believed what Crow had told them, as they had not done before. Then the people talked it all over, and decided to go back, and they loaded their canoes and moved to the old village. And the boys became the chiefs of the village, and always kept the people supplied with whales. The youth who joined the deer. There was a man who was a great deer hunter. He was constantly hunting, and was very successful. He thought continually of the deer, and dreamed of them. They were as friends to him. Probably they were his Manitou. He had 2 wives, one of whom had borne him no children, while the other one had borne a male child. One day while hunting, he came on the fresh tracks of a doe and fawn, which he followed. They led to a knoll on which he saw a young woman and child sitting. The tracks led directly to them. He was surprised, and asked the woman if she had seen any deer pass. She answered. He walked on, but could not find the tracks. On his return, he said to the woman, "You must have seen the deer. The tracks seem to disappear where you are, and they are very fresh." The woman laughed, and said, "You need not trouble yourself about the tracks. For a long time I have loved you and longed for you. Now you shall go with me to my house." They walked on together, and the hunter could not resist the attraction of the woman, nor help following her. As he went along, he thought, "It is not well that I am acting thus. My wives and my child are at home awaiting me." The woman knew his thoughts at once, and said, "You must not worry or think that you are doing wrong. You shall be my husband, and you will never regret it." After the two had traveled a long way, they reached a hilly country. Then the man saw an entrance which seemed to lead underground. When they had gone some distance underground, they found themselves in a large house full of people who were just like Indians. They were of both sexes and all ages. They were well dressed in clothes of dressed skin, and wore deerskin robes. They seemed to be very amiable and happy. As the travelers entered, some of the people said, "Our daughter has brought her husband." That night the woman said to the hunter, "You are my husband, and will sleep with me. You may embrace me, but you must not try to have intercourse with me. You must not do so before the rutting season. Then you may also go with my sisters. Our season comes but once a year, and lasts about a month. During the rest of the year we have no sexual connections." The hunter slept with his new wife. On the following day the people said, "Let our son-in-law hunt. He is a great hunter. Let him get meat for us. We have no more meat." The hunter took his bow and arrows and went hunting. Two young deer, his brothers-in-law, ran ahead and stood on a knoll. Presently the hunter saw them, and killed both of them. He cut them up and carried them home, leaving nothing but their manure. The chief had told him in the morning to be careful and not to throw away any part of the game. Now the people ate and were glad. They saved all the bones and put them away in one place. They said to the hunter, "We always save every bone." When the deer were eaten, the bones were wrapped in bundles, and the chief sent a man to throw them into the water. He carried the bones of the two deer that the hunter had killed, and of another one that the people were eating when the hunter first arrived. The hunter had missed his two brothers-in-law, and thought they were away hunting. When the man who had carried the bones away returned, the two brothers-in-law and another man were with him. They had all come to life when their bones were thrown into the water. Thus these deer people lived by hunting and killing each other and then reviving. The hunter lived with his wife and her people, and hunted whenever meat was required. He never failed to kill deer, for some of the young deer were always anxious to be killed for the benefit of the people. At last the rutting season came on, and the chief put the body of a large old buck on the hunter, and so transformed him into a buck. He went out with his wife and felt happy. Some other younger bucks came and beat him off and took his wife. He did not like others to have his wife, therefore he went home and felt downcast. That night the people said, "What is the matter with our son-in-law, that he does not speak?" Someone said, "He is downcast because a young man took his wife." The chief said, "Do not feel sad. We shall give you ornaments tomorrow which will make you strong, and then nobody can take your wife away from you." On the following morning he put large antlers on him, and gave him the body of a buck in its prime. That day the hunter beat off all the rival bucks, and kept his wife and also all her sisters and cousins for himself. He hurt many of his brothers-in-law in fighting. The deer people had shamans who healed the wounds of those hurt in battle, and they were busy throughout the rutting season. In this way they acted until the end of the rut, and the hunter was the champion during the whole season. In due time his wife gave birth to a son. When the latter was growing up, she said, "It is not fair to your people that you live entirely with my people. We should live with them for a while." She reduced a large quantity of deer fat to the size of a handful. She did the same with a large quantity of dried venison, deer skins, and dressed buckskins. Now she started with her child and her husband, who hunted on the way, and killed one of his brothers-in-law whenever they required food. He put the bones into the water, and they revived. They traveled along as people do, but the women thought this too slow, therefore they transformed themselves into deer. Now they went fast, and soon reached the country where her husband's people lived. She said to her husband, "Do not approach the people at once, or you will die. For 8 days you must prepare yourself by washing in decoctions of herbs." Presently they saw a young woman some distance away from the lodges. The hunter recognized her as his sister, showed himself, and called, "O sister! I have come back, but no one must come near me for 8 days. After that I shall visit you, but you must clean your houses, so that there may be in them nothing old and no bad smell." The people thought him dead, and his childless wife had married again. After the hunter had become like other people, he entered his lodge with his new wife and his son. His wife pulled out the deer fat from under her arm, and threw it down on long feast mats that had been spread out by the people. It assumed its proper dimensions and covered all the mats. She did the same with the dried meat and the deer skins, which almost filled a lodge. Now the people had a feast, and felt happy and pleased. The hunter stayed with his people for a considerable time. Whenever they wanted fresh meat, he gave his bow and arrows to his son and told him to hunt. The youth always took with him his half-brother, the son of his father by his Indian wife. They killed deer, for the deer were the boy's relatives and were willing to be killed. They threw the bones into the water, and the deer came back to life. The deer boy taught his half-brother how to hunt and shoot deer, how to hold his bow and arrows so that he would not miss, how to cut up and preserve the meat, and he admonished him always to throw the bones into the water, so that the deer might revive. Finally the deer woman said to her husband, "We have been here now for a long time. Let us return to my people." She invited the people to accompany them, but they said they had not a sufficient number of moccasins to undertake the long journey. The woman then pulled out a parcel of dressed skins, threw it on the ground, and it became a heap of fine skins for shoes. All the women worked night and day making moccasins, and soon they were ready to start. The first day of the journey the hunter said to his wife, "Let us send our son out, and I will shoot him." He hunted, and brought home a young deer, which the people ate. They missed the deer boy, and wondered where he had gone. At night the hunter threw the bones into the water, and the boy came to life. On the next day the hunter's wife went out, and he killed her and fed the people. They missed her, and wondered where she had gone. At night he threw the bones into the water, and she came to life. She told her husband it would be better not to continue to do this, because the people were becoming suspicious and would soon discover what they were doing. She said, "After this, kill your brothers-in-law." The people traveled slowly, for there were many, and the hunter killed deer for them every day. After many days they reached the deer people's house. They were well received. After a time they made up their minds to return, and the deer boy said he would return with his half-brother's people, and hunt for them on the way, so that they might not starve. He accompanied them to their country, and never returned. He became an Indian and a great hunter. From him the people learned how to treat deer. He said to them, "When you kill deer, always see to it that the bones are not lost. Throw them into the water. Then the deer will come to life." A hunter who does this pleases the deer. They have affection for him, are not afraid of him, and do not keep out of his way, for they know that they will return to life whenever they give themselves into his power. The deer will always remain plentiful, because they are not really killed. If it is impossible to throw the bones into water, then burn them. Then the deer will really die, but they will not find fault with you. If a man throws deer bones about, and takes no care of them, if he lets the dogs eat them, and people step on them, then the deer will be offended and will help him no more. They will withhold themselves, and the hunter will have no luck in hunting. He will become poor and starve. The hunter never returned to the people. He became a deer.